Please consider subscribing to my channel, liking this video, or leaving a positive comment if you enjoy the content that you're seeing here today. It really does help me out a lot. Even just literally a quick subscription or like does a lot to boost this channel, and it will facilitate you seeing more cool stuff on this channel sooner. Picking speed is a pretty hot topic amongst electric guitarists these days. So I thought I'd make a quick video where I outline a few strategies, examples, and techniques to help you optimize your speed picking progress. What's the best things to focus on? Of course, these are pretty general guidelines, but if you follow what I'm gonna show you in this video, you should notice some pretty fast improvements in your playing. So to start off, I'd really recommend, if you're looking to build your speed picking chops, that you concentrate on 3-note per string scales for a lot of the time. I'm well aware this is not the only way to play fast. There are lots of cool sounds to be explored by playing 2 notes per string and other scale systems and things like that. However, just to get clean speed and to get those sounds that we associate with speed picking, 3 notes per string is going to be a great way to go. So if you've kind of memorized your major and minor scales using caged, or a system where you have kind of like 3 notes on most strings, but then you have a couple strings that have only 2 notes, I'd recommend adjusting those fingerings if you're looking to craft, big speed picking runs. The next big tip I'd recommend to you is to really make sure that you have your left hand technique in order. Electric guitarists often struggle with their left hand, with like their thumb placement and things like that. And just the bottom line is, to speed pick effectively, along the lines of sort of the legendary guitarist you hear, your left hand has to be able to climb up one of these 3-note per string scales, without having to kind of like awkwardly hop from side to side. Your thumb, unless you have giant, Jimi Hendrix hands, you're probably not going to be able to get away with having your thumb hanging up above the neck. A really simple way to dial this in is just to practice ascending up 3-note per string scales using legato or hammer-ons. Let's check out a couple of examples of this. One thing you might find is when you really dial in your left hand like this, is you can actually get some pretty cool aggressive sounding speed just by using legato. There's nothing wrong with that. You definitely don't need to have burning picking chops to be a well-respected player. Just ask Reb Beach. Something like that?
No.
You know it. The next tip that I'd really recommend that you do is, when you get into practicing picking, really take pride and enjoy the process of practicing at sort of moderate speeds. I've heard it said before that speed is a byproduct of accuracy, and I don't really fully agree with that statement. I'd amend it slightly and say speed is a byproduct of great guitar technique. So if you're able to pick through scale-based passages, and arpeggios for that matter, with really good, solid percussive tone, none of the notes sound weak, you can really move through. You can really get that sort of hard picking sound. Over time, amassing that type of technique is just going to organically help you play faster. There's something to be said for practicing at a moderate speed, say like 70 or 80% of your max speed, and just picking the notes as hard as you can. Maybe just take a little simple run, and you just focus on picking as hard as you can. In a way, it's almost like going for a jog wearing a weight vest, you know what I mean? Like a weighted vest that's gonna sort of slow you down, and you have to work so hard to run at a slower pace. And when you take off the weight vest, when you go back to just sort of picking with a normal amount of percussion and force, it's gonna feel like a weight has been lifted, and it's just gonna feel easier to play fast. Now, there's a lot of debate around whether you should use alternate picking, strict alternate picking, which is just going down, up, or whether you should use economy picking, which is where you use little miniature sweeps to cross over to the next string. Personally, I use a lot of economy picking. However, you can really, it's whatever works best for you. However, when you're first getting your picking chops together, a good way to kind of develop your technique without having to commit too strongly either way is to focus on licks just initially that have an even number of notes per string. For example, like 2 notes per string, or one example I'm going to give you is a 6-note per string lick. The reason is when you have an even number of notes per string, This facilitates strict alternate picking. In other words, you wouldn't economy pick. Even if you're a dedicated economy picker, you would not be economy picking a 6 note per string lick. It just would not make sense to. Another great tip to keep in mind as you're building speed is that practicing string skipping is a great way to really drill the picking motions thoroughly. String skipping kind of exaggerates the challenges of crossing strings when picking on the electric guitar, which is one of the biggest challenges with building these speed picking runs. So if you practice string skipping licks like this one I'm about to show you, you'll find that this is a great way. You'll really find that your wrist and all the muscles that you use when picking, they really get a great workout. Let's check it out. So for players that really want to heavily feature speed in their arsenal and really get that blazing fluid sound, I do generally recommend using economy picking for certain runs, particularly when you have an odd number of notes on a string. There's a couple things that I urge players to keep in mind though as they're developing this technique, and really these principles I'm about to throw at you, they apply for developing clean technique in regards to any skill on the guitar. So let's check these out. So when you're doing this, a couple key points is you really want to kind of be hyper focused as you cross strings to make sure that you're letting the pick just kind of fall to the next string. You're not going pick, 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 pick. That kind of defeats the purpose of economy picking. You're really just letting it fall. And you want to make sure that your left hand movements are clean enough that you have the separation of the notes present. You know, the notes they're not like bleeding together like that. You want to avoid that sound. And then as you start to kind of gradually play through scales, 3 note per string scales with this approach, as you build speed, try to avoid it becoming rhythmically just groups of triplets, you know, that type of thing. Try to make the notes smooth and even, like even as 16th notes or 8th notes, whatever you have, you know. The notes stay even, and in other words, it's like someone can't tell by ear that you're playing 3 notes on a string. It just sounds like a smooth, continuous stream of picked notes. So lastly, what I want you to consider as you're building your picking speed is to use what you know at all times and enjoy the process. So what that means is you have a certain amount of guitar speed likely built up already. Probably you're not, probably if you're watching this video, you're not like brand new to like learning how to hold a guitar. So you can use the speed you have to create music and to sound good. Honestly, speed picking is one of those things we can all always improve at. But if you're playing one of your solos and if you play something that's like, slightly less fast than what you might hope for, or slightly less flashy than sort of the sounds you hear in your head, I doubt anybody's really going to call you out on that and be like, hey, you didn't speed pick enough in this solo. Trust me, you're way more likely to get called out for speed picking too much than not enough. So even by just taking a few of the simple tenets we discussed here today, you can create some relatively simple but great sounding speed picking licks that really use the musical device of speed to enhance the lead playing that's happening. Let's check out a kind of a quick little mini solo that uses some of these simple techniques and speed and sounds good. Thanks so much for checking out this video. I really hope that you enjoyed what you saw here today. Stay tuned. We got lots of cool new stuff coming your way. Cheers.